and I will give children to be their princes, and babes shall rule over them. And the people shall be oppressed, everyone by another, everyone by his neighbor. The child shall behave himself proudly against the ancients, and the base against the honorable. When a man shall take hold of his brother, of the house of his father.
Hi, good morning. Welcome to Line by Line Bible Studies. Welcome. We're continuing our study here in the book of Proverbs. And, let's get that ready. Okay, there we go. All right, let's read it. The horse leech hath 2 daughters, crying, Give, give! There are 3 things that are never satisfied, yea, 4 things say not, it is enough. The grave and the barren womb, the earth that is not filled with water, and the fire that saith not, it is not, it is enough. Oh, against that. The eye that mocketh at his father, and despiseth to obey his mother, the ravens of the valley shall pick it out, and the young eagles shall eat it. There be 3 things which are too wonderful for me, yea, 4 which I know not. The way of an eagle in the air, the way of a serpent upon a rock, the way of a ship in the midst of a sea, and the way of a man with a maid. Such is the way of an adulterous woman. She eateth, and wipeth her mouth, and saith, I have done no wickedness. For 3 things the earth is disquieted, and for 4 which it cannot bear. For a servant when he reigneth, and a fool when he is filled with meat. For an odious woman when she is married, and an handmaid that is heir to her mistress. There be 4 things which are little upon the earth, but they are exceeding wise. The ants are a people not strong, yet they prepare their meat in the summer. The conies are but a feeble folk, yet make their houses in the rocks. The locusts have no king, yet go they forth all of them by bands. The spider taketh hold with her hands, and is in kings' palaces. There be 3 things which go well, yea, 4, and 4 are comely in going. A lion which is strongest among beasts, and turneth not away for any. A greyhound, and he-goat also, and a king, against whom there is no rising up. If thou hast done foolishly in lifting up thyself, or if thou hast thought evil, lay thine hand upon thy mouth. Surely the churning of milk bringeth forth butter, and the wringing of the nose bringeth forth blood. So the forcing of wrath bringeth forth strife. So once again, I looked in it. A horse leech is a horse leech, like horse fly. It's a big old horse leech. The larger kind, they call bigger leeches horse leeches. Something I didn't know about. 1 moment, please. All right. Okay, so horse leech has 2 daughters crying, give, give. Give, give, more, we want, take, I get that. A leech obviously is a leech. Now, sometimes we compare people to leeches, right? It's considered, it's interesting. I was listening to someone talk yesterday about how, they'll compare people to vermin and stuff like that, rats, and, and they make it like, this is the first step to genocide. It's like, well, maybe. Sometimes it's the first step to repentance. I mean, people get a little too hot about language sometimes, I think. Usually it used to not be so sensitive, but even so. It is kind of a parasitic animal, a leech. And some people are parasitic. not races of people. That's like that's dangerous talk. That's a bad idea. And it's not true. You can't there's scriptures for that. It's like among all men. That's why God will have all men to be saved, because there are men worth saving in the eyes of God among all men. Even though we're not worthy of it, he does it out of his kindness. He brings us to him, and we're all unworthy of that kindness, and we're all equally the same thing. It says, the poor man and the, what was it, the liar, or what was it? No, the fraudulent or the deceiver. They're both men. But so I'm wondering what is meant by it has two daughters crying give. So I think what it's saying, it just like the key is basically what happens next. There are three things which are too wonderful me, yea, four. It's 3 and 4. And so here it's like the horse leech has two daughters crying give. There are three things. The idea is a leech is this creature that leeches off others and takes from others. And I think these other three things, they also are things that sort of take, except there are 4. So where's it get to, I don't know if this 2-2 is supposed to, it almost feels like this. I'm just wrestling with this a little here. Feels more like this. Not like necessarily I should put 2 returns there, but this is like formulaic. And then there's and then there's this thing, and then there's the formulaic again. I'm just trying to break it down for 3 things. Yeah, because there's a very clear kind of structure here that I don't even need to know Bollinger's thing. I didn't even look at it for this, but there's a generation, there's a generation, there's a generation, and then we get to this, the horse leech has 2 daughters, crying, give. There are 3 things that are never satisfied, yea, 4, saying it is not enough. I'm just, because in here we have that, I'm going to separate them like this, because they are different thoughts, And then it goes, 4, no. Yeah, it's like, and then we have a couple in a row here. And then we go back to sort of, there'll be 4 things. There's not 3 and 4, there's just 4. 4 things that are odious. They're good. Wait, how many does he mention, though? Because sometimes it's not, like 1, 2. Okay. That may be connected, but whatever. Okay. I like splitting it up there just for today because it just seems like it's helping me. All right, so I'm not going to connect that to that, 2 and 3. It's not 2 and 3. It's 3 and 4, and then this is a separate thought. It may not be a separate verse, but remember, all the verses are arbitrarily added. Not entirely arbitrarily, but somewhat arbitrarily, meaning there's always room for flexibility on that because they are not part of the original writing. The verse system in the chapters was added later, as is all the punctuation and all the capitalization. That's all something that people had to come up with. Now, to one degree or another, people sometimes feel certain translations are more inspired than others, and that's fine. But even so, this verse system is not invented by King James. It's something that was added another time. And so I like that it's flexible. I don't want to think like, it has to be inspired. It's like, well, what's wrong with just a cataloging system that's not perfect, okay? Let's just leave it that way. Instead of trying to shoehorn every aspect of the Scripture into our mental mold, where we have the simplistic view that every square millimeter of it is God's personal writing to us. So it's not quite like that. Like I said, it's like on the whole, I look at it like that. That's the overall view. That it is God's communication to man. I believe that. That's why I teach it all my life. So, I don't know what to make of the horse leech. The leech, I assume it means it's a metaphor for a person. The leeching person, the bloodsucker. The bloodsucker has 2 daughters, and what do they yell? Give. I mean, there's some people who always just they don't do anything. They just are bloodsuckers. Now, and it's on an individual basis. I know that, like, sometimes that is exactly how they characterized, the Jews in World War II. They're parasites and bloodsuckers. In World War II, they're the Jews. That's what they. But that's characterizing a whole people like that is unjust. First of all, you can't characterize a whole people based on, experiences with some, especially when you consider like the fact that, in many ways, the banking industry, there was no one but the Jews to do it. I mean, whatever, because the Catholic Church disallowed taking of interest. I've always been somewhat conflicted on that. I'm like, well, maybe we shouldn't. I don't know. But economy, I mean, is the economy the be-all, end-all of everything? Like, we can't have advancement without people making money off of money. Well, there'll be no lending. Well, maybe that's better, or less, or whatever. I don't know. How are you going to get a house? Who's going to lend you that much money? For nothing? For no... So it's kind of a difficult thing. Back when the Bible was written, remember, that was the law of the land at that time. And some of those, like giving of usury, I've heard a lot of people apologize for it. I mean, make an apologetic, a defense of the taking of interest when it's reasonable. And I guess, but even a small amount of interest over a long period of time is compounded. And it's like, my mortgage, I've paid many times the value of the home already. Or not many, but several times the value of the home I've paid. I remember looking at my mortgage papers. I'm like, wow, I'm paying like 5 or 6 times what the asking price was because I have to borrow the money. That's why, I don't know. It's hard, when you don't just like have land where you just build a house here and, it's a little less formal. I guess I don't know what to make of it. People took land by war and then they found someplace unoccupied and all right, we'll live here. But, people who are, I think that for some people, mooching becomes like a habit, and so they always like to ask, give, A number of ministries are very give-based. I mean, even everything on the internet, everyone's like, oh, here's my Patreon. It's like, these people aren't even talking about God. They're just talking about politics, and people are sending them money, which I think is funny. Whatever. I guess they want put your money where your mouth is, I guess. It's like, you want to support something like that? That's what people do. If they don't believe in the Lord, most likely, or they'd be supporting efforts more like that. Or, humanitarian type things. I think it's always a sure bet. If you want, what do you want to invest in? Gold, silver, precious stones? How about the poor? Invest in poverty, in impoverished people. Invest your money in starving folks. And that's the safest place to put it. It's really the safest place to put it. Put your money into the mouth of a hungry person. Not into my hands. Do I look hungry to you? Am I surrounded by squalor? Not really. Well, my very old house. This is not the lap of luxury here. Well, that's the point. Because I could use the money a lot more than they could. I still live month to month. But, no, it's the testimony against them. Arnold Murray, he was like, oh, I never took a salary. But it's like, that dude lived very well. Okay? I was there. His family seemed to be doing all right, and they didn't seem to have jobs outside of the ministry there, okay? Nothing wrong with it if you're working in it, but I choose not to do it. It's like, and I'm not going to, and I don't want to make my boast about it, so let's move on. I'd rather boast of my infirmities. 3 things that are never satisfied. 4 that say that do not say, it is enough. The grave. The grave is never full. They're like, oh, no more room here for the dead. Oh, there's always more room for the dead. There's always more room for the dead. The barren womb. But that's like, it's interesting because, of course, in a sense, these are, the earth is not, let's go on, let's comment on them after I look at each one. The earth that is not filled with water. I assume that means the earth, the earth that is not filled with water. I thought at first desert, but I think in the sense that like that the earth soaks up the water. It never says it's enough. Like it always needs more rain. Yeah, it's never like it's like, oh, that's enough rain forever. You know what I mean? It needs more rain. The earth that is not filled with water. I mean, it's like, yeah, you can have inundated places, but I mean, we're talking about earth where we want to plant stuff. You know, like here. We're 1,000 feet above sea level here. We're not going, you know, we're not going to be submerged without some major changes, even though this used to be the bottom of an ocean. I know because that's what I see in the rocks. You know, so I can go down there and look. It's all Ordovician, as they call it, whatever you want to think of that. The grave, the barren womb, the earth is not filled with water, and the fire that saith not, it is enough. Yeah, because they say, well, fires go out. Yeah, but the point is, if given fuel, it would never stop burning. I mean, as long as fire has fuel, it'll burn. Like, look at the sun. There's plenty of fuel up there. It's still burning. You know what I mean? And so fire never says enough. It's not the fire that quits. It's the fuel that disappears, right? Okay. Things that are never satisfied. And that's the idea, is a satisfaction. The fire is never satisfied. It always wants more. The grave is never satisfied. It always wants more. The barren womb. Barren womb's an interesting one, though. You know? It's never satisfied. Well, of course. Because it's like, if it doesn't have a baby in it, that's what it's waiting for. So, oh, okay. No, barren. Barren implies someone who knows they can't have children because they want to have children. You know what I mean? It's not someone who's like avoiding it because they've been convinced that having children is the worst thing that can happen to them. I remember that pressure when I was young, when I was a teenager, and starting to date, and makes you think of the next one about I was obedient to my parents growing up for the most part. I didn't, they didn't, the problem was a lot of things they didn't tell me not to do. You know? They didn't talk to me about certain things. Like drugs, they didn't talk to me about drugs. You know? And so I was like, I hated smoking that my dad did, but I was pressured by friends to do it because I was never told not to. I think they assumed I wouldn't because I was always trying to pressure my dad to quit while I was growing up. I was like, come on, quit. I would smash his cigarettes and stuff. Back then, it was like, they were like, when I think about it, it was like 50 cents a pack. No wonder he didn't get that mad. Boy, today, with what they cost, I would imagine people would lose their mind if someone smashed a pack of cigarettes. Not lose their mind, but I mean, that's like, even with inflation, I can't imagine taking a 20 and setting it on fire. I couldn't imagine setting on fire a 1. Not in my position. Well, what about this? What is this? Is there some deeper meaning here? Well, I don't know. I can think of examples where, like the grave. Well, in a sense, it does say enough. Ultimately, the earth is going to cast out the dead, and the grave is going to be all done. Death and hell are cast in the lake of fire. No more grave. I mean, there'll be, but I mean, no more making of it. It'll be filled. It's going to be enough. As far as we were talking about men, I mean, right? The did not, through Adam's transgression, death entered into the world, and we all die. And there's no end to the number of us that can enter there, as far as that could potentially. But yet it will, satisfied or not, it will be closed. So hallelujah on that. He has the key, the keys of death and hell. And in that case, that hell is the grave. It answers the Sheol. There's a difference. The grave is the place we are when we're dead, obviously, right? But it answers to in the New Testament, they use the word Hades to refer to this. Like, I will give you the keys to the kingdom, and the gates of Hades shall not prevail against it. The gates of Hades refers to the gates that keep the dead in the grave where they are. And that is also, unfortunately, translated many times in the King James, a place where I thoroughly disagree. It is translated hell all over the place, and if you're not aware of this, it can be quite confusing. Because there's another concept of hell which Jesus taught, where he called it Gehenna, which I'm quite sure is answers to the lake of fire of the book of Revelation. Now, there are many instances of torment in judgment and such, where you have in chapter 14 of Revelation, and like things like Jesus many times referred to the weeping and gnashing of teeth that would occur when people were cast out of the kingdom. I think the overall evidence from the scriptures is clear that the torment, though spoken of as infinite, is only infinite in that spiritual sense, whereas the death that comes, the second death, is literal. I think that if you put it the other way around, say, no, death is spiritual. It's not a real thing. You're actually conscious, and it's nothing like being dead. To me, that's like you failed God's Rorschach test. You're kind of monstrous. You know what I mean? If you're, I don't know, if you look at it long enough and you can't see the other one, I get it. I get it. Look it. It's not about failing the test. It's like, you look at the picture. It's like, hey, who can tell? Do you see the old woman or the young woman? When you see that ink blot or whatever. Do you see the dog or do you see the butterfly? But the question is, now if you see the dog at first, now if I tell you there's also a butterfly there, can you see that also? And now, since we're not looking at ink blots, we're looking at God's word, I'm going to say, like, okay, since we have the possibility of an either or, which we do, I assure you, you have to consider the fact that there is a choice to be made of interpreting there. So we have no choice. We must do it the traditional way because this is the way we've done forever. It's like, old wineskins as far as I'm concerned. I don't think it's really in line with the teachings of Jesus at all. The traditional view of, a torture chamber of infinite delights. Because, things that are never satisfied are not good. The earth that is not filled with the fire that saith not, it is enough. And like I said, fire never gets tired of devouring. But the problem is fuel. And that's what I'm talking about when the everlasting fire consumes people. The fire doesn't quit. The worm does not die, and the fire is not quenched. To torment someone properly, you got to quench the fire a little bit so that they can survive. Like the Assyrians were very careful to preserve the victims alive as they peeled their skin off. It's not an easy trick, and they don't last very long. The problem is the harder you torture someone, the more they wear. They're going to have these bodies that are like glorified bodies. God's going to take this he's going to give them a glorified body just so he can torture them in it. Is that exactly how it's going to be? I don't think they get glorified in the resurrection. I think when the wicked come back in the resurrection, they're still just humans. And it's a spiritual torment. Well, it says the dead are going to come back. It says literally their body. What is he going to do with the bodies? It's a second death is what it says. And then their spirits are tormented. It's like, as you please. I mean, I could say that. Yeah, the spirits are tormented, sure, in the sense, but you got to understand my view of spirits. It's like, spirits, spirits are funny things, but I don't think without a body and a soul, you're really talking about a soul anymore. And then, like I said it's spiritual, did I not? But not a conscious, I don't look at it like that. The death must be death. I believe in death. And so, the fire that is never quenched is all, like I said, the unquenchable fire implies something that consumes completely. Undying worms implies something that completely eats up And that's, people always confuse it. It's like, well, it's not the person that's undying, it's the worm. It's not the, what I mean? It's not and people confuse that. It's like, they're like, it means their soul never dies. That's not what it said. Actually, in Isaiah 66, it quite explicitly says carcasses. You can go there and read it in Isaiah 66. But anyways, the earth is not filled with water. It needs more water. Yeah, there's always work to do. The earth always needs watering. The garden always needs tilling. There's always houses that need to be repaired, vineyards that need to be tended. I mean, it's like, as far as, one of the things I find that I like about being alive is caring for other living things, animals, plants, people. It's enjoyable. And, and looking after them and build, and that's why I always understand. It's like when it says they shall build houses and inhabit them, they shall plant vineyards and eat the fruit of them. To me, it says productive labor, and that is heaven forever, productively working and enjoying the fruit of what you work at. And whatever that happens to be, people say, I get boring. I get boring, it's repetitive. Well, you're boring and repetitive, not me. So I don't think so. But, you know what I mean? I don't know what to tell you. You can either lay hold of life and seek glory, as I do, or you can just settle down and fold your hands and die. That's it doesn't matter. Nobody's going to live. Everyone's going to just die. It's all nothing. Okay, keep telling yourself the fairy tales. So there's always, that's the good one, I guess, in a sense, in my mind. I mean, well, it's also bad, right? I see good and bad on both sides. You know what I mean? Like, the fact that the fire does not say it's enough is both positive and negative. Because you need fire to do what fire does. The same thing with the grave. God can even, he has power even over the grave, does Jesus. We know he showed that. He demonstrated that when he raised Lazarus up, and also when he raised himself up from the dead. Okay, the eye, I'm sure there's more that could be said about this. It's very interesting things. They're not satisfied. But there's a blessing and a curse to that. Like, never being satisfied is kind of good, because satisfaction breeds boredom. I like being a little bit dissatisfied. I want to, it's good to rest, but then get back to work. God worked. And it seems like that's the kind of thing. He likes to take care of living things too. And he gave it to man to take care of living things. Anyway, and that gets at father and mother too, right? I that mocketh at his father and despiseth to obey his mother. Well, I'll say that, in the thing, only reason, I'm not going to try to toot my own horn, whatever. I was I was a naturally good kid. I don't think it was like an accomplishment. It wasn't like I was like hell bent, and my mom, she straightened me out, and my dad, I did some bad things and I got corrected. Sometimes I got overcorrected, and there were other things. There was missed things, bad things. But as far as generally speaking, I was not provoked to rebellion. No. My rebellion came, honestly, when I turned 19. I decided not to become a lawyer, and I decided I was going to study the Bible all the time. And that's what my mom, that was like, oh, no, my goodness. So that was my first rebellion. So, what I mean? Like, what do you say about that? I didn't obey my mother. You know what I mean? But I was 19 now. You know what I mean? As a child, you must obey your parents, or you literally will end up dead in a field somewhere with the birds picking your eyes out. It's just an extreme example of the ends that happen. Like Merle Haggard, Mama Tried. I love Merle Haggard. He's got a lot of great songs, but Mama Tried. No, obviously Dad wasn't around, so that's a big problem. Dad isn't around. Mama can try all she likes, but she can have a heck of a time with that boy, because the boy needs a father, just like a daughter needs a father too. But a boy needs a father. And children need fathers. If you don't think they do, they don't absolutely need it. Yeah, sure. You can give a plant, you have to give them fertilizer and enough sun. You can just give them half the amount of give them half what they need, and it'll still grow, but it'll be stunted and not what it could have been. That's all. Hey, Kids are rugged. You can put them through a lot, and and sometimes it makes them. Sometimes when they got a lot of potential, a rough time makes people better, like stronger. One of the markers of genius is having a dead parent. Having your dad die when you're 5 years old, turn you into a genius. Not exactly. If you're a genius already, that kind of emotional trauma does things to your brain when you're young. I always thought part of what gave me my creative, the depths of it. It always comes from deep sadness, and I know it comes from the death of my grandfather when I was 3, and because we lived in the same house, and he was there more than my father was, early on. But I didn't. It wasn't an emotional thing to me. It was just he died and he was just gone. I was just like, oh, what? He's gone? It was just too little to feel anything about it. But I remember, like I've talked about before, I was thinking about death when I was 3. I know because we were still living at the first house when I remember asking the question. I only have 3 or 4 memories at that house. And we moved right when I turned 4. I don't know. But, you got, your parents will try to teach you the right way, and if you don't listen to them, you're a fool. And and this happen, when you don't have your father around, it's, discipline is often, it's not, what I mean when I say discipline is lacking, it's not that mom doesn't try to discipline. It's just that she can't. Meaning the child is not disciplined. He lacks it. Discipline is something that the subject or the person, the object of your disciplining receives. He becomes a disciplined person, disciplined. They do what they're supposed to do. I can't go to the left or to the right. I must go straight because I'm disciplined. I've got the ability to control myself and also to obey external orders that are necessary for my preservation and my good. That's what a disciplined child does. They're looking after themselves for their parents in a way. That's why I'm trying to make you autonomous here. So I don't have to that's the point. You listen. You do what I say. Mock? No one's ever mocked me, not to my face. You can mock me behind my back. That's all right. I just want, fear, don't mock me in front of me. I know I'm funny behind me. That's all right. As long as it's in good. When I say that, I mean in good humor. And you have to have a sense of humor about yourself. If you can't take yourself, if you take yourself too seriously, that's sort of antithetical to Christianity because, we're not Jesus. Did he take himself seriously? It seems so. And he had every right to. He had serious business. But he also seemed at times, I feel like this sense of humor or, like I said, what he says to the apostles in times is so it's so hard at times, it's funny. I find it funny. Because of their, obvious ineptitude at times. Because I identify strongly with them. So the Lord's saying to them, it makes me, it's comforting and at times humorous. But I don't mind a little gentle chiding myself towards me, and I love humor, as probably people know. But mocking his father in that sense of meaning seriously, not taking it serious. Seriously saying I'm not, yeah, sure, Dad, whatever you say. Whatever, dude. I was reminded of a video I helped my kids make where I was being and the son was being oh yeah, well, whatever. Because he's not really listening. I might as well be a foreigner. Speaking a foreign language. And I was this guy does not know what he's talking about. And that here's the thing. How does this happen? How can we prevent this? Because the thing is it's not good for the kid. Yeah. That's why I said, I try to raise my kids so that other people will like them. Because I want them to be able to take care of themselves, and I want them to have people who they encounter like them and want to assist them in getting forward in life, want to do business with them, want to hire them for jobs. So I never let them do stuff that makes me not like them. Because no one's going to love them for me. I love them on automatic pilot, but to discipline them, that takes patience and effort. It's not like you can't just do it on autopilot. That was the main thing. My parents kind of like I said, they didn't really tell me not to steal. I knew it was wrong. You know what I mean? It wasn't like you had to be drilled about it. Most kids know it's wrong to steal. That's one of those early ones you get. I knew it was wrong. But it wasn't like I was being drilled on it every day. But whatever. You can't do that. But then when kids go astray, you got to punish them. If they don't know wrong, you can't. If like I said, if it's something you haven't established as a don't do this, and if you do, it's a spankable offense, don't do it. Hold back. Be patient. They're going to do enough things to warrant spanking. You're not going to have to jump on every can. I like to be, don't be overly reluctant, but don't be trigger happy. Try to find that moderate, appropriate, for transgressions. Serious ones. Lying's a good one. Get that lying out of them, But what I was saying is, how does this happen? And I blame school. Not school so much, but the social environment of school. Kids are very badly socialized at school because, as my teacher told me, this is not social time. All right? This is not social hour. We're doing English. We're doing science. And that's what it's for. School's for that. Especially in elementary school, it's mostly just to get them to be good factory workers. I mean, that's why they instituted it in Prussia. And I'm glad to live in a state that allows us to homeschool our kids without a lot of oversight. I'm glad when I send my kids to school, they straight A. I send my daughter and my son to the local place. They're instantly straight A students. That's nice. But when they hang around with kids all day, and especially if, like, let's say they come home, mom and dad aren't home yet, and then both are gone, and mom not home. Like, when I came home, I was in the latchkey generation, as they called us, but my mom was home a lot when I was a kid. When I was older, not so much. She'd be doing stuff, It wasn't like she was always gone or whatever. She was frequently home, but, not always. No problem. But some kids, and my dad would get home for dinner, and we'd always eat dinner together. And when I was younger, my dad and I horsed around. But by the time I got to high school, I was so focused on the school social environment. Home was like, to me, useless. It was like at home, I was wonderful. I was, my wonderful son, my handsome son. But I was still awkward, and it wasn't reflecting in the school environment. I wasn't popular. I wasn't like hated or anything, but it's like, to me, I wanted to be popular. I wanted to break into but as an introvert, that was very difficult. You know what I mean? I needed a stage or something, ultimately that is exactly what happened. The stage. But it made me drift from my family. I didn't, the thing is, because my father and I, we had a father and child relationship. And that has to move into the adult arena. You know what I mean? Where it's and the thing is, in the middle years, if you're not involved in those years, growing up, like, my dad was somewhat involved. He would come to football practice. He coached when I was real young, but in those middle years, not much. So we were kind of not close. And so I got into a lot of trouble. Not trouble that would be like with the police or people that knew, but it was trouble enough for me. Because they and they would want to talk to me, but I didn't want to talk to them. I didn't like to talk to anybody hardly, as far as like authorities or whatever. And in some ways, yeah, it's like I was doing things that I knew they didn't want me to do. And I think back on all that is very dangerous. When I think of the things going out and drinking, underage drinking and driving, and all this, just very risky behavior. You take the risks your parents tell you not to, you can end up dead on the side of the road with a buzzard picking your eyeballs out. And that's really not where you want to be. So, listen to your mom and dad. 3 things that are too wonderful. 4 which I know not, the way of an eagle in the air, the way of a serpent upon a rock, the way of a ship up in the midst of the sea, and the way of a man with a maid. These are the 2 wonderful things. So we first have had the horse leech. I think Mox is fun. I just like that little interplay. And then the 3 things that are never satisfied, the 3 things which are too wonderful. The way of an eagle in the air, yes. The miracle of flight is wonderful. It is a wonderful thing. And I don't know it, I mean, we can learn a lot about it. But the truth, like, none of us will ever know the thrill of being an eagle in flight. You know what I mean? I mean, like, we know. Not, an airplane don't match it. Hang glider ain't going to match it. You don't know what it's like to spread your wings and to fly through the air like an eagle. We can imagine, but we don't know it. Way too high. The way of a serpent on the, the way of a ship in the midst. Not that you can't imagine, like I said, the way of a man with a maid. Well, that is a way that it is made. But it's also kind of a mystery, right? There is a mystery to it. A ship in the midst of the sea. See, the idea is like, the sea is this sort of treacherous thing. Moving through the air, for one, we can't fly. So it's like, whoa, look at that thing flying. And look at that snake, the way it like goes around the contours and stuff, There's a wisdom of the serpent, right? And there's the vision of the eagle. And the ship in the sea, smoothly sails through the waters, but also is tossed about. And, it is a wonderful thing. It's a wonder to behold, the way about it. And also, there's a great deal that goes into it, to sailing a ship, and to doing it masterfully. To masterfully sail a ship, I mean, come on, think about it. Like, have you ever watched movies where they actually really demonstrate all that goes into that? Even a small yacht. There was like a Robert Redford movie, I forget, it was like All Hope Is Lost or something like that. It was pretty good. So I'm like, it takes there's a lot that goes on. Especially a larger ship. But the way of a man with a maid, the way that a man makes love to a woman, I mean, just in the sense of wooing love, that is a mystery. Not the mystery doesn't mean like something that can't be known. You know what I mean? It means something that is hidden that has to be uncovered. Meaning, like, it's a funny thing, because though it's something that's happened from the beginning of time, men and women getting together, right? Every man coming new into the world finds it a complete mystery, right? I mean, I don't know, not every single guy, some guys seem to have a knack for it, okay? But that in itself is a proof of the mystery. The exception proves the rule, as far as I'm concerned. Because most of us, right? It's not something that comes natural to you, per se. Like, it comes natural to the eagle, or it looks natural, right? And snake, right? That's nature. It's wonderful. It's amazing. It's perfect in its going. The ship, that's not natural. But it's wonderful in the sense of human ingenuity. And the way of a man, and men have been doing this forever, but like, could you build a ship? I mean, not me. Maybe there's someone out there who's like, yes, I can. And okay, you are the exception that proves the rule, though, right? Because the rest of us can't. Right? The rest of us can't. And for some people, like, unlocking the key of romance is very daunting. How that is done. Because it's mysterious and difficult, like flying in the air, like crawling over a rock the way a snake does. I mean, imagine trying it yourself, okay? Like they're meander. I mean, whatever. I think the visual is good enough. And a ship, very difficult. Often they name the ship after women because of their difficulty to manage. And people, oh, it's sexist. It's like, yeah, well, whatever. It's like, if you don't think, men, I'm sure, are their own challenge for women. Of course, we are different creatures. That's part of what makes romance interesting, is the difference between the sexes. As far as, all of it is not, it is a mysterious and wonderful thing that it doesn't happen to everybody. It doesn't have to be for everybody. Jesus himself said, some men are eunuchs from the womb, some are eunuchs for of men, and some for the kingdom of God's sake. And that eunuch could be taken as a metaphor for someone who just isn't going to be married, like Paul the apostle, who chose not to be married, so that he could serve God completely and continually for the sake of others. And that doesn't mean there isn't a place for raising children. It's absolutely necessary. Paul even called it a sanctified thing. When I talk about the bad seed, by the way, I do believe in bad seeds, as far as seed of the serpent type thing, in the sense of that we are his children. Like in the book of Genesis. I did a Bible study on the seed of the serpent. It's one of the lowest ones if you go to the studies page on oraclesofgod.org. I think it was number 3. It's a 2-hour study. I talk about the devil's children in the world, but as a spiritual seed, right? A spiritual seed. And so, spiritually, there is a bad seed. That's what I'm saying. That's why you'll see families were perpetuating these cycles of violence where it's like, or abuse and stuff. And it's like because they continue in the same spirit, in the same way. That's why it says in Ezekiel, you don't punish the children for the sins of their fathers unless they continue in the same ways. And for me, when I talk about the things my mom did and stuff, I consider that a warning to me. If I'm the same, Paul, you think that's wrong? Well, if you do the same thing, you're as guilty as she is. And you deserve everything you think she's got coming. I don't wish it upon her or anybody. But when we don't repent, it's what we get. It's what we get. But there's no bad seed between the two Christian parents. If you're two genuine, your children aren't going to be spiritually wicked by default, especially if you're not asleep at the wheel. I said, don't go on autopilot thing. I'll just make them memorize verses and beat the crud out of them. Bam, bam. Remember that. That like I said, you got to be wise. You're not going to make a perfect, don't expect them to be perfect either. Were you perfect when you came to Jesus? I'm glad that I'm not swimming in a world of iniquity with my children. But they're all in, there's a blessing that comes from being raised by people who have faith in the Lord. Your children are sanctified. There's a sanctified. Now they can walk away from that, but if you do a good job, they won't. They won't. And what else would a Christian parent want for their child? So I consider I was far too. That was way too wonderful for me. It was so wonderful. I had to participate in it. I know it. Some very wise men do not know the way of a man with a maid. They literally just. It's even a joke. I remember. I think it was. I don't want to misapply. It was a comedian. He said. It was in. We say, it's not rocket science. Say, what did rocket scientists say? Well, it's not like we're trying to talk to girls or something like that. And I get it because I was kind of a nerdy kid, and I thought talking to girls was about the scariest thing I could imagine. But what's funny to me is I found that once I had the girl, now it's easy because there's no charging, there's no feeling, there's no desire, all my passion is tied up in one place. And that's as it should be. If you're gonna be if you're gonna be interested in romance, you got to choose well. Like I said, I've almost been married 30 years. This is our 29th anniversary coming up, and I found over the years, at some point, I realized, wow, I love her a lot more now than I did when we were first married. And of course, why? Because I barely knew her. But I wouldn't have found that out without the commitment to the marriage. Because, I mean, it wasn't like there weren't times when things could have gone badly, especially because of things I did. Specifically, she never did anything that made me want to leave. Let's say that for sure. But she never left me. Such is the way of an adulterous woman. She eateth and wipeth her mouth and says, I have done no wickedness. Now, I'm not sure what this means as far as, I mean, I know what it means in part. The idea of eat is, stolen waters are sweet, stolen bread, whatever, bread eaten in secret. The metaphor of eating, it means just like they will say about the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Eating forbidden fruit is sometimes a metaphor for adultery. Yes, specifically here. She partakes of this evil fruit and wipes her mouth, just like, I'm going to say that makes me think of Pilate washing his hands of Jesus, meaning let's just, the evidence, or any residue of the deed is just wipe it away, right? We'll just sweep it under the rug, wipe it away. We don't have to, you could, whatever, wipe away the evidence of the crime. In a sense, yeah, it's quite. I'm going to go slightly vulgar on this because I realize that the mouth is. It is it's placed for the female genitals, I think, and the wiping of it. The idea of she's just going to wipe herself off so that no one can tell, right? Because it's like another comedian said, if you kill someone and no one finds out, it's kind of like you didn't do anything wrong, right? And that's how wicked people think. If I go have sex with another man and clean myself up, I really haven't done anything wrong. No one, at least he'll never know. My husband will never know. And then that is definitely the thought of wiping your mouth is wasn't eating nothing. Didn't me eating? No. I don't have a drink milk. I don't have no milk mustache. What are you talking about? I got a little signs of what I've been up to. She thinks she can just hide it. That's what it means. She just hide it. And if I get away with it, then it's like it didn't happen. I have done no wickedness. That's how a lot of people live their lives, honestly. It may not be an adultery. Remember, there's, every idle word. He who looks after a woman to lust after her has committed adultery with her already in his heart. It's not as consequential. Don't leave your husband because of, otherwise I would never, my wife, if women left their husbands for looking at other women, there would be like a 1% marriage rate, or a 10%, I'll be generous, right? Because especially young men, they're way too horny. You just don't understand. When your husband gets older, you should be expected to settle down. But if you keep him satisfied, he will never stray. If he's a good man, I guess. Some guys are just cheaters. And you got to know that early on. That's why you make them wait to have sex with you. Don't have sex with a guy before you get married to him. Don't do it. Though I consider, I'd like to at least hear you're engaged. If I see a couple that's physical with each other, we're engaged, we're holding hands. Okay. Now, this is my boyfriend, we're holding hands. This is John. I'm getting to know John. We're going to go to the museum and maybe talk a bit or something. Actually, what it should be is John, I've talked to John. I know him a bit from thing. We're going to go see this or whatever. As soon as I always feel like I would tell my daughter, don't bring more than one guy home. After you bring a guy to meet me, I'm going to be a little bit, Though honestly, I also thought like maybe you should bring every guy first here. Like come meet my family before we go on a date. That would probably be a good idea. Because then I'd know, all right, this guy wants to go on a date with me. I just want him to meet my family beforehand, see how he stands up. It's a good idea. Because I even considered arranging marriages. As far as I think it's a good idea. Like, yeah, you should marry that one. You know, let's go talk to her parents. Too bad the world doesn't work right anymore, you know. Because that's the thing. It's like if you could, it depends. You know, it depends on where your passion is. I do think you can make it work on your own. That's great. But like I said, choose wisely. Even if you don't choose wisely, like you don't have to be super wise, and it's not that, you know, it's your life. But make the most of it. You know, whatever you do, do it with your might. Whoever you love, love them with your might. You know? For 3 things the earth is disquieted, for 4 which it cannot bear. A servant when he reigneth, a fool when he is filled with meat, an odious woman when she is married, and a handmaid that is heir to her mistress. It sounds a lot like the first one, the servant when he reigneth. Handmaid when he... So these are things, the earth is disquieted. I wonder what that word is a little bit. I didn't check the other words, but I guess that's, you know, it's not critical. We're on track as far as I'm concerned. Oh, let's see. Disquieted. To be agitated, to quiver, quake, excited, perturbed. Okay, disquieted is just right. It cannot bear. Lift, carry, or take. It can't bear it. And again, that's always in a matter, because it happens, right? These things happen. But the idea is what it ought not to be. It's not the way things ought to be in the world. And it's disquieting. And, you know, it's because it's when someone who is not appropriate to the office ascends to the office. You don't want to have a slave as the king, per se. In implying in the sense, now the slave might have been a king in another country and he was enslaved or something like that. That's not what it's talking about. So it's talking about someone who's actually a servant because that's the kind of work, the only kind of work they're worthy of. I mean, they don't have skills, they don't have knowledge, they don't have training. So what they do is they carry water and they hew wood. Okay, they're servants. And you don't, because we talk about, you know, the president is supposed to be a public servant. They're all supposed to be public servants. All the, you know, but this is the idea of one who reigns. Reigning is not the same like when Joseph was made steward over Egypt. He had been assigned that by the Pharaoh. And he was over Egypt. And he was the second most powerful man in Egypt. But, you know, like I said, but it's an unusual situation, sort of, that proves the rule. It's like that a servant would ascend to the highest office. That's why a lot of people find it unbelievable. Reigns is malach, to come to become king or queen. When I hovered my mouse over it, it gave me something completely different. You know what it said it was? When you hover your mouse over this, you go to Bible Hub. Reigneth. It says, yeah, it says Malak consult. I think they have the wrong Malak. 4427. Whatever, it's got the right number. It just gives a weird, quick definition. It says it means consult. Is that like the base meaning of it or something? Hold on here. Strong says a primitive verb to reign. Consult is one of the ways it's translated. Oh, that's the first way it's translated in the King James. That's why they put it that way. Because it can mean, by implication, to take counsel. Right? To reign inceptively, to ascend the throne, causatively, when it's used in that sense, to induct into royalty, hence by implication, to take counsel. I think in this sense, it is not the servant when he takes counsel, it is when he reigns as a king. And that is a disquiet, and here's the thing, why? right or wrong, good or bad. It means things are out of kilter. It's not the natural order of things. When the earth is disquieted, it means the natural order of things is disturbed. No, servants don't become kings. That's not what happens. But sometimes it does. And for that cause, the earth is disquieted. Because it does happen. It's not usual. Let me go back to here. And then a servant, the fool when he's filled with meat. That's an interesting thing. A fool when he's filled with meat. And that's going to be a metaphor for what? For being satisfied. For having satisfaction. For having everything he needs. Because a fool doesn't really worry about anything except that his belly is full, right? And then he doesn't take thought for the morrow. He doesn't, plan ahead, because he doesn't use wisdom. And Jesus said, take no thought for tomorrow shall take thought for the thing of itself. True enough. But in the sense of this, when you see not so much taking thought for tomorrow in the sense of worry, what about tomorrow? Sufficient to the day is the evil thereof. True enough. But also, when you see evil coming, you need to take appropriate action, to react appropriately. I liken it to the don't throw yourself off the temple thing, because when you see a train coming, step out of the way. Don't think, well, the Lord will make, surely the train will pass through me, and God, or his angel, the angels should be around any moment to lift me off the train tracks. Get off the train tracks. And so that's what I mean by planning ahead. A fool, when he'll see the train coming, he'll just sit there. I mean, obviously, most people aren't that foolish, but in lesser circumstances, where they ought to see the train coming, they don't see the train coming because they don't look. And people get hit by trains all the time. Not all the time, but people get killed by trains. You think it would if they're running on tracks. It's not like a bus going on the sidewalk and catching you off guard where you didn't expect it to be. That's terrible and not your fault. But a lot of people get hit by buses. Sometimes it's not their fault either. A lot of times, you know what it is? It's those crossing signals. Because safety third, man. Safety third. The crossing signals, sometimes they say walk. And then you step out in front of a bus that's not stopping. A fool when is filled with meat. Also because, of course, according to the Proverbs, fools go hungry, right? Because he's too lazy to even bring his hand to his mouth. A full fool. It also makes me think of like when you get people who are foolish and rich. That's why a fool and his riches are soon parted, because it's like they don't last long like that. I mean, you can't be, it depends on in what arena you are foolish. You know what I mean? Because you could be wise with money, but foolish in many other arenas. And you will suffer in those areas where you're foolish. If it's moral foolishness, well, then you will have nothing. And for example, a fool who doesn't understand to self-control, and he gives himself over to debauchery and to seek to, like as I in my youth seek out to be with all kinds of loose women, and of course he's a fool for wanting it and all that. He may have the wisdom to obtain it, but even in obtaining it, it's like there's no good for him. I don't know. Let's move on to the next one. The odious woman when she is married. That's a real bad situation. That one's pretty, this is what I talk about all the time because I have 7 sons. Marry carefully. You don't want to be married to some odious woman who's just argumentative and unpleasant. She's so pretty, but my goodness, she is the most annoying creature that the world has ever seen, or the most unpleasant person, or she's going to be, she values material things. I tell you what, I wouldn't marry any woman that puts too much value on material things. Certainly not for what the life I wanted to live. It depends on what material things you value also. It's like children and family and home is about all the material things I never required them. I acquired them through the Lord. It was not something I sought for my fleshly life. Like I said, I was going to be a rock star or a politician, whichever, and it was gonna, and I wanted to figure out how do you get those girls to come home with you the first night? That's what I wanted. That was the knowledge I wanted to acquire. That was the wisdom I wanted to know. How drunk can I get? How much acid can I do? And then all of a sudden I'm almost dying or feel like it. And that's what made me turn to the Lord. My foolishness, Sometimes that's what it does. So, these are things that are out of the natural order or, it shouldn't be. They shouldn't come to pass. A fool should not get what he get be satisfied. Foolishness should never find satisfaction. That's what I would say. It should be completely dissatisfying because that's how it's supposed to work. When it doesn't, that's bad. Because now the fool has no feedback to stop them, from being a fool. And they become a danger, fools in different positions, they become a danger to other people. Like when a servant, when he reigns, when someone inappropriate to the office, like Joe Biden, he doesn't belong in that office. The man is a plagiarist. He's an intellectual lightweight. Not that you got to be all brains up there, but I'll tell you what, you got to have some sort of moral fiber, and he's got zero. One of the most corrupt politicians of his generation. Probably will, when it's all said and done, they're going to say it all, but it's like, there's the degree to which he's being covered for is just ridiculous. We don't need, they could put up someone who wasn't a criminal and probably win, I mean, whatever. It's like people, because they've done such a good job of slandering the former president. And he does a good job of putting his foot in his mouth, I'll say also, of course, as always. Whatever. To me, it's still, I just retreat there. It's a vote for chaos. Not quite chaos, but chaos going in the right direction as far as I'm concerned. Okay, when you reign up the fool when he's filled with meat. What's odious mean? Let's check that out real quick before we get done here. Odious woman is hateful. Not sane. That's the Hebrew word. A sane woman. Who wants a sane woman for a wife? My gosh. I don't want a sane one. I want an insane woman. That's why I married a redhead. Come on. To hate. Sane. What's it? Is it Sane? See, I'm never sure if I'm supposed to pronounce that E. Oh, yeah, there we go. Sane. What am I talking? I'm not sure. Right there. Sane. And whatever applications. All right, good enough. Hateful, odious. So hateful, hateful what? Hateful to God, mostly, I would say. Or not. There's some women, I don't know how they get married. They seem unpalatable to me. I'm like, how did anyone ever get convinced to marry this woman? Sorry, a lot of ladies are real sweet. I love my lady, and I like being partnered with a woman. I like it. I'm not a misogynist by any means. I think the women have a lot to offer. I really do, and that's not a joke. But some men are absolutely the pits, right? So when I say some women are absolutely the pits, that's true too. Women, they're great. Women. Oh, come on. There's toxic women just like there's toxic men. There's just toxic people. If you want to, toxic, horse leeches. There's different ways which people suck the life out of others. All right, let's see what we got for tomorrow. We got the 4 little things that are exceeding wise. That's interesting. We'll double return there, 24, and it's quite a bit to go. Probably look into 31 a little bit, maybe. Maybe we'll just read the end, and we'll probably figure. Well, I don't know, man. We'll see. All right, anyway, so thanks for joining me. We'll look forward to being back again tomorrow. Until then, remember the testament of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy. That's what I believe.
And I will give children to be their princes, and babes shall rule over them. And the people shall be oppressed, everyone by another, everyone by his neighbor. The child shall behave himself proudly against the ancients, and the base against the honorable. When a man shall take hold of his brother, of the house of his father,